All right, I'm working on a Kubota 900 RTV, and what's happened is there's kind of a common thing that can happen on these. The way this works, these machines work, is they have an automatic engine brake or a deceleration brake, you could call it. So as soon as you take off the gas, there's an internal braking mechanism that will stop the machine, and that works great. Like, it's probably one of their you know most liked options or features on these machines, because you really don't have to use the brakes ever. The only time you need the brake is if you want to stop on a steep hill, or if you were going to use a parking brake. So with that said, what can happen on these though is if you go full throttle, and let's say you take your foot completely off the gas, and you do that kind of quickly, and it brings that machine to a quick stop, which is fine if it's light and if it's not loaded up. Let's say you have something in the back of it, or you've got a plow on it, and you do that, it puts a lot of pressure on the knuckles, and the knuckles are actually aluminum. So what happens is it twists the knuckle and tries to stop the machine, and it snaps. There's a spot on the knuckle where it connects into the arms, and that will snap. And that's what's happened on this one. You won't even really notice it. You'll hear kind of a strange noise in the back, and it will actually, if it snaps on top, it'll actually still work. So you won't really notice this until obviously you see the wheel. The wheel will look like it's on an angle. If you look from the back on like a 10-degree or a 20-degree angle, which just means that this hub, which is what the spindle goes through from the shaft, is not straight vertically, and it's because it's there's a snap on the knuckle, and it's not being held in place. So the good news is there's a couple options to fix this, and what I'm going to show you is how to tear this down, because these machines are really have a common issue with rust. And it's not just one part or another, it's really all the metal on these, from the frame to the control arms to a lot of the engine component, frame components, and the bed and everything. They seem to be susceptible to rust, and I don't know why, but they all do it. They all kind of rust, and that's the main issue with these Kubota RTVs. They're great machines, but they rust. And so when you go to do anything on these machines, there's just no way you're going to get the old bolts off without breaking them. So the easiest and fastest way to get this apart is to cut the two connecting rods that go from left to right. They're actually pins, and they're bushing pins, and they're actually gonna keep this in place. So this would go, in here just like that, and there's a bushing pin that would go from the right to the left side, and it would just hold that in place. The easiest way to get that off is take a Sawzall blade with a Sawzall and some oil, and just cut the bushing on either side on the inner part of the arm. You cut that right off, and what will happen is the bushing itself, you can cut right through it. It's not too bad. Get a decent Sawzall steel blade and some regular oil on that blade, so it doesn't hurt the blade too much. And then you can cut these right off. You're gonna have one on this side that would go like this, be going through, and it goes all the way through and comes out the other side over here. The piece in the middle is still inside the actual knuckle bushing area. So you could try to get all that out with a press if you wanted to reuse any of this materials, but honestly, you cut these off, you're never gonna get those out, not easily. Cut them off on top, on the bottom, and the whole assembly is gonna come right off in your hands, right? You've got all the bearings right in there, and you're gonna pull that main nut on the shaft first, and that'll allow that knuckle to slide right off onto the ground. One little pointer I can give you is that make sure your control arms are kind of supported. If the lower one is not supported, this shaft will probably pull right out of the inner joint. The boot will actually slide right off the inner joint, and then it gets kind of to be a project, because that boot is on there with a steel ring that's crimped and tight, and you don't want to get anything in that joint like dirt or anything, you know, in there. So if that comes out, and this one did, I've already got it put back together, but if that does come out, it's not the end of the day, because what you can do is just press it back on with a big screwdriver. Just push gently around the outer edge of the rubber boot where the ring is, and you can press it back on there gently. So again, if you support that like this with a jack stand or a chain like I've got it, so it just holds up the lower control arm, it's supporting the axle or the shaft from falling out of the inner boot area. So that's one tip I can give you. The other big tip I can share with you is if you want to buy this Knuckle fully loaded, I would call it. So when you buy this Knuckle, you can buy it fully loaded, which means it has all the bearings and seals already in there already for you from the factory, or you can buy just the case, and you have to do everything yourself. I wouldn't recommend just buying the case and doing everything yourself, because by the time you get these bearings out and you ruin all the seals trying to get those out, you're going to need a lot of parts. That's going to cost you just as much almost as buying this fully loaded. So you can buy this fully loaded new for about $650 on the Kubota, one of the Kubota parts sites online, or from your local dealer, or you can buy this used on online as well. If you search on the popular online sites for buying used parts, you can get this for about $250 used, fully loaded. And that means, you'll get the part and you'll just put it on. You'll put the 2 pins. You're gonna want to buy 2 new pins, right, for the top and the bottom. Top and bottom. You're gonna get the part. You're gonna put it on, put your pins on, and then you're done, right? There's no messing with seals and pressing in bearings. So that's what I did. I've got a new one coming, and it's gonna replace this one. It's used. And I bought it online for about $250 fully loaded. That is the easiest way to go in my mind and most cost effective, so I would recommend that. Again, if you don't want to wait, they have these in stock, because these are very common on the Kubota new parts sites. You can get this next day or 2 days for about $650 brand new. Again, not a ton of money, but it's convenience you're paying for there, because you're going to get that part within a day or two. And if you get it used, you're going to have to wait probably 3, 4, maybe 5 days. And if you've got this machine that's being used every day on your job site, then obviously the downtime is a bigger problem than the money for the parts, the new parts. Okay, that's pretty much it. Total time to tear this down was about an hour, because I had to cut some of the bolts, and nothing seems to come off easily on these. Again, they rust everywhere, so you're not going to get any of these bolts off to reuse them. You're going to end up cutting things out and then replacing with brand new pins. Okay. All right. I hope that's helpful to you, and that's about it.